So Simon and Sanaa's collaboration grew a project based on gift giving to Simon's local community bar in Toronto's East End Chinatown called the Apollo, where he also formed a connection to the bar's owner, Francis. And as Sanaa writes, the pictures Simon took are documentation, an archive and a record, a way of thinking about art practice that isn't stiffened or institutionalized by white gallery walls. And without further delay, I'll turn this conversation over to them.
Thanks so much for that beautiful intro, Joy. Really happy to be here to talk about the project and lend a little bit more context, as well as kind of like just give the whole story behind it, which is, I think, is kind of fun and meandering. So hopefully that kind of comes across for everyone else. I guess I'm going to do a quick, I guess I'll just say, like, my name is Simon Fuh. I'm an artist writer in Toronto. I often do a lot of kind of install sound based work, and also work that kind of deals with relationships and my relationship to a place, and how that informs I guess how I think about my own identity and kind of political relationship to a place. I think maybe I'll give Sanaa a chance to introduce herself as well, and we can kind of like get things rolling.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. So my name is Sanaa. I'm an artist and curator living and working in Mohkinstsis, also known as Calgary, on Treaty 7 land. I feel like I often start these sort of things with like the artist statement version of my practice, like the really clinical explanations of the themes and the mediums that I'm really interested in and engaging with. And it's kind of a way of trying to like legitimize myself in art spaces, which is kind of exhausting. And I don't really think it makes sense to do that within my role as a curator for this project, and especially within the scope of this project, which, as Joy mentioned, was so rooted in relationship building at its core. And like when I think about it, like that's the stuff that makes me really excited about having an art and curatorial practice. And essentially what I really love about like the art spaces that I get to explore is the relationships that form throughout like making and playing and experimenting together. I co-organize a peer mentorship group for early career BIPOC artists, and it's called Making Space. I co-organize it with Kiona Calihu Lightfoot, who is a wonderful artist. And I think that work has really framed for me like how I see artist relationships and what like collaboration can really mean when you see people as friends and with like inherent trust and not necessarily like competitors. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned from that work is that being an artist and curator can mean existing flexibly within those definitions and within those spaces. And it can mean creating projects that sort of bend those spaces in order to make space for like really dynamic relationships and art projects that play to everybody's strengths. And I think that was kind of the biggest strength of this project, to be honest. When I was invited to curate the artist project for this issue of CMAG, I thought less about what the final product could be and more about what like who an artist was that I wanted to know and work with. And so I reached out to you, Simon, because I was familiar with your work and I liked the playfulness and curiosity that runs throughout it across like all of these really different explorations that you do. And I felt like a really good like seed to start exploring together. So maybe you could start by kind of explaining like what the project is and how we got into it, and then we can dive into the context after.
Totally. Yeah, I think so to give people like some background in terms of how this project evolved, like, yes, and you reached out to me and we had, I don't even know how many meetings, like where we were kind of just figuring out like, what are we going to do here? Because like, I think both of us, and we can kind of talk a little bit about this more like as we go along, but like both of us have, and I think this is true for most people living in cities with a Chinatown. Most of us have kind of, or like, we have kind of like either tangential or very specific relationships to a Chinatown. I don't come from a Chinatown, though I'm half Taiwanese. So my relationship is very like mostly I would say like almost like not consumeristic, but it's usually like I'm going there to like get like something to eat, or I'm going there to like grab a drink, or like I really want to get a new phone case or or I'm just walking through and I find the kind of central Chinatown in Toronto and Spadina, like probably one of the places I walk through the most, like obviously as like a post kind of U of T grad, especially, but even just in general, it's like, yeah. So anyway, we had kind of spent a lot of time just like thinking about what are we going to do here? And eventually, like I kind of, having recently moved to Toronto's East End, near Broadview Station, I knew that I wanted to do something that was a little bit more specific to East Chinatown, which is a kind of like less known, at least popularly less known Chinatown in Toronto. So that's that kind of Broadview, Danforth area. Hopefully I'm not freezing here. That's kind of like Broadview, Danforth in Toronto, and is really the Chinatown that I spend more time at these days. And so I figured it would be kind of fun to give a little bit of like a tour of the area before I kind of like go into the bar itself and why I wanted to like work with it as a kind of like place. So I'm going to do a quick screen share here on my desktop. Okay. Working for everyone? I'm assuming it is. Okay, so this is Akia Bar and Grill. One sec. I also have a beer going for this talk, which I feel like, I encourage everyone to get your like cheapest, most accessible beer in the spirit of this project to hang out with me virtually. Me and Sanaa. So, okay, so this is Akia Bar. This is a Google Street View from August 2017. This bar has since closed down, but when I really got into talking with Francis at Apollo about like why he wanted to open his bar, and particularly why he named it Apollo, he cited this. Oh, I was frozen. Okay, hopefully I'm good now. But I'm okay. I'm just going to close this and then keep going. Okay, so yeah, Akia. Francis kind of was citing Akia as like the inspiration point for why he opened Apollo, which is just down the street. And he's like, oh, there's this place Akia. Like if you want to know why I called it Apollo, it's because this other bar Akia was called, or it was also named after a Greek god. And so he wanted to kind of like keep up this tradition of like East Chinatown bars that were named after Greek gods. I was just looking this up, and I don't think there is actually a Greek god named Akia specifically. Oops, my calendar. Whoops, hold on here. You all get to see what I'm doing this. Give me one sec here. I have my video at the top there, so I'm unable to access my tabs. Okay, one sec here. And I'm just going to the Wikipedia page of the Greek god that I think this bar is referencing. Okay, so this is Takia. I think this is what the bar was maybe referencing when it was around. The Greek goddess of vice and moral badness, abominations, presumably sin or crime, depicted as a vain, plump, or heavily made up woman dressed in revealing clothes. Didn't know this until just before the talk because I actually hadn't like looked up Akia Greek god, but I thought this is like a really interesting, strange way to begin giving a tour of the area. Okay, so I'm going to do really quick a Google Street View and lead y'all down to Apollo. Okay, so let's go to Apollo from Akia. Let's go back to today, closest to 2021. So this is what it looks like now. Actually, this is kind of funny because like we had talked a lot about gentrification leading like into this project, and like East Chinatown's relationship to gentrification is a little bit specific. especially compared to what's happening essentially downtown on Spadina. It's a little bit more slow growth in East Chinatown, but even in that small period, you can really see the change in at least street aesthetics as to what the community actually looks like now. So Apollo is just on the other side of Girard. Boom. Now I first went here with a friend, Shelly, after an opening. Shelly had recently moved to the neighborhood as well. And we'd both like walked by this place and been kind of perplexed by it because it has this strange logo, totally barred off windows. But it always had an open sign lit whenever we went by during like bar hours. And we never like gone in. There's a kind of much more popular bar called Farside just around the corner. That's much more of a like typical kind of hipster bar, kind of like 90s, like 90s VHS kind of aesthetic vibe. So we were kind of interested in finding something a little bit new. So we went here after this opening and ended up like sitting at the bar for like several hours, just like chatting with one another and a few of the other like patrons there. So to kind of like paint a picture of what Apollo is like on the inside, imagine, actually, why don't I just grab one of the pictures from the magazine? So this is kind of like the typical like you're walking into Apollo vibe. There's like one or two like super old, pretty nice men hanging out at the bar watching the game. And then there's like no music playing, totally silent. The lights at the front of the bar are usually off. And the only like sound that's happening in the bar is like Francis like maybe tapping on his laptop behind the bar and like Monday Night Football happening on this giant curved TV. There's kind of these like paintings around, kind of like decorative paintings, a giant like I Am Canadian flag right here, and a small kind of classic coin op bar pool table, and then a internet jukebox, which is really fun. So this was kind of like the environment that we walked into when we were first going there, and to our surprise, after like a few hours, this group of friends walks in, and they're all kind of like mid-20s kind of thing, like my age basically, and they kind of like sorry, it's really dark. I'm gonna turn a light on really quick. It's sunset over here. So they walk in and kind of like dap up Francis, and we're like, "Yo, what's up, Francis? How's it going?" And like Francis like says hi, and like they're all like obviously know one another, and we're like, "Okay, what's going on?" And they like make themselves at home, like plug the internet jukebox, like get some music going at the bar, like "Hey, Francis, can you like turn on the lights at the pool table?" Like, and then the lights come on, and like they start like plug in the pool table and all like start playing and everything. So it kind of like really comes to life. So like I guess I bring that up because it's like Apollo has this kind of like double identity as like maybe that's true of a lot of bars in terms of like their daytime like patrons versus their like more nighttime patrons. But anyway, it was really like noticeable there because it really felt like a lot of, especially like local East End Toronto people that just kind of like were a little bit sick of the like super hip vibe over at Farside, which is a bar I still like, but just like coming over and hanging out at Apollo. So I became pretty like obsessed with this place last summer, a lot, like as like a lot of my friends will say. Will recall, I ended up having my birthday party there. And I knew that I wanted to do something with this bar, and then it was kind of like with through conversation with Sanaa that we kind of like, you know, we're trying to figure out what that could be. And initially we had kind of talked about like doing something that also referenced, and Sanaa will kind of talk about this a bit too, like a bar in her local Chinatown, the Paper Lantern, I think it's called. And maybe trying to do this kind of like cross Chinatown bar conversation kind of thing. These kind of spaces that are very familiar to us, local to us, but different, but also share this kind of like parallel history. They're very different vibes. And I think we had come to the idea of maybe doing like giving each place a gift, you know, and like maybe we could try to figure out this, what that kind of like gift between these two places would be. And I think because Paper Lantern is a pretty like, Paper Lantern is actually really nice. like it's like very like classy. It's still like kind of like Chinese kind of like owned and operated the same way that Apollo is. Like you go in and you're actually like talking to the owners. You're actually like the person that you're interfacing with isn't just like an employee that is like trying to get through the night. It's actually the person who's like invested in the business. So that was kind of like this initial interest point for us, I think. Yeah, so now I feel free to interrupt me at any point, by the way. I feel like I'm kind of like really monologuing the project now. So please feel welcome to interrupt if you want to. But yeah, so we were kind of talking about doing these gifts for these two places, but it started to feel like the project was leaning a little bit more towards Apollo specifically. And so like I ended up spending more and more time there and kind of like trying to figure out like what works in Apollo. And like as I went on, you know, like one day I was basically like, I came in on like a Monday night, and I think it was literally like Monday Night Football playing on the TV. And I was sitting at this first bar chair, like too nervous and shy to talk to like the bartender whose name I didn't know at the time, and the other bar patron. I'd met Francis a couple times, but I hadn't like kind of really met him yet. And so I was like kind of like looking around, and I was like, it makes no sense to give this place like a bouquet of flowers. Like we were kind of thinking about like, oh, we could have like a conceptual relationship to the type of flowers. Like maybe we're getting kind of like chrysanthemums or like these beautiful kind of like I don't know, extravagant like Chinese flowers that reflect like different seasons or something like that. And it's like, man, this place is like, I don't think Francis would even understand like why I'm giving him a bouquet of flowers at all in the first place.
Yeah, we were thinking about like this like flower symbolism as like a token of appreciation, but I think you had this like wake up call when you were there that was like, who were we doing this for? Like,
yeah. Yeah, no, totally. I think that like we were kind of being influenced by the Paper Lantern. Like that place was so nice, so it kind of like it made sense. Like a bouquet of flowers made sense with the interior design there, but like here it was like the patrons are going to be like, Francis, why do you have a giant bouquet of flowers like that?
Yeah. And we were thinking about Paper Lantern in terms of this like comparison. It's just this like go-to spot. But I think like, I feel like the night that you went, everything actually really fell into place about what the project actually was. And it was much less about these like comparisons and these relationships to very different Chinatowns and very different cities, and more just like about like very intentionally thinking about this relationship.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. And like while I was there, kind of like getting nervous and just drinking beers and not knowing what to do, like another one of these groups of young people comes in like and starts playing pool, similar to the one that came in like that first night. And so there's three of them, and they I was plugging the jukebox just like to have something to listen to, and they're like, oh, like do you want to play with us? There's three of us, we could play doubles or whatever. So I started playing with them, and after a while we go out for a cigarette, and I I just like divulge basically to them. I'm like, guys, I need to be like, I gotta be honest. I don't know. It was nagging me. So I kind of like told them about the whole thing. I was like I'm being commissioned to do this artist project for a national magazine. It's an art magazine. I want to do something with this bar because I love it. It's like the ambience is really like fun and sincere and great, but I don't know what to do. Like, do you think Francis would even, or do you think the bartender, if they had told me his name was Francis, so I was like, do you think Francis would be even into like this thing? Is this even something that he would want to do? And the one guy was like, man, if you put Francis in a national magazine, like you're going to make him feel like a celebrity. I was like, okay. Like, I think that's good. Like, hopefully that's a good thing. And so we were kind of scheming outside, like what could we give Francis? And they're like, oh, what about like, they're like, what about like a fountain or something, like a, you know, like a kind of Chinese style fountain. And I was kind of like, okay, maybe that would work. So we go back in and they introduced me to Francis. And so finally, like kind of ice broken, I started talking about the whole thing. And he kind of really opens up and tells me the story about IKEA and everything like that. And we asked him, like, Francis, what would what would be a good gift? We were thinking a fountain maybe. And he was like, oh, fountain symbolizes bad luck in a business because it actually symbolizes like money flowing out rather than flowing in. I was like, okay. I was like, so what would be like a symbol of good luck then? And he was like, oh, there's a reason I have a monkey on the logo outside. He's like, it's a symbol for good luck, and also it's the zodiac symbol of my daughter, which I think is just like so sweet. So I literally like shook his hand that night, and I was like, okay, Francis, in 2 days, I'm going to come back with a drawing of a monkey and hang it on a wall in here with you. And then I'm going to take some pictures for a magazine. And he was like, okay. And that's basically what happened. I went back to the studio and using like Google Street View images of the monkey on the logo, like ripped the this monkey and put it in the drawing. I think a friend of his might have designed this logo. I can't remember. So that's where the inspiration for this monkey comes from. And I wanted to kind of do something that referenced the Greek god Apollo, the god of the sun. And so the monkey of Apollo is summoning the light of the sun to bring good fortune to this establishment. And so I came back a couple days later, and he was like really excited and like wanted to hang the drawing like at the front of the bar kind of thing. Because he was like, oh, like people are going to be coming in and checking it out. I was like, oh, thanks, Francis. Like, I don't know how many people are actually going to come. Like, it's kind of a niche art magazine. I mean, no offense, like still it's great magazine, but it's like, I don't know what the Apollo on Broadview C magazine crossover is going to be. But like I'm very excited. I genuinely hope it does bring people in. And so we like hung it on the wall, and then like literally 2 days later, somebody like, I think they like were either like pulling back their cue stick or like leaning back. They like smashed the glass in the frame. And luckily, like one of the guys that I had met that Monday night was there, and he ended up taking the frame home to to reframe it. Basically, he felt like really bad about it, and I was like, oh, it's not a big deal. I just ended up texting him and meeting him to pick it up and reframe it, and then put it, now it's in this like safer spot over here, kind of above the bar, so it can't be leaned against. Yeah, that's basically like a full kind of like overview of what actually transpired for the project. Sanaa, did you have anything that you kind of like are thinking about in terms of whatever just after that overview?
Yeah, I just think that like, first of all, I didn't know that that's why I moved. I remember on your birthday party, you like posted about it and I was like, why is the picture in a different place? But that's really funny. But I think it's just like, I feel like you've done a really good job of describing like just how much of it was like in the relationship building and like how much of it was like really formed in that one moment. And I think that like this sort of like muddling through it and then everything makes sense was just kind of like the theme of like our relationship building in general. Like even like when you and I met on Zoom, it's like always like a little awkward and clunky, and like the first few times we met, like we didn't really like have any sense of what the project was going to be, and we kind of just like, I remember leaving every meeting being like, maybe we'll just let it simmer for a little longer. And we started to like uncover this idea and play with investigating the space. And I think that like, yeah, that like one night I feel like kind of shifted everything. Like I remember you texting me about it also that night. And like we had like previously like really only ever talked on over email. So that like text was also like a very different tone. And you were like very much like narrativizing like the whole evening. You started with how like you had to go home because your cat killed a bird. It was like a whole thing. And I was so like, I was so invested in the story. And it was like coming one text at a time. And I was like, you're like milking this a little bit because I know I want to know so badly. But like really like I was like, this is the first time where it felt like we were like friends and that we were like talking as friends. And I feel like it was just like such a pivotal like evening for like all the relationships involved in this project, all centered around like you taking this like leap within the space. And I think it's just like, it makes me think a lot about like community in the arts, because I feel like we talk about community, like our artist community, our art gallery communities, whatever. But I think community building like requires trust, and it's not inherently given. And sometimes like building that trust like takes that kind of leap. Like in a place and like meeting them halfway and assuming that they'll meet you where you're at. And I feel like that was such a big part of the project. Like even with this, like we kind of left it right down to the wire and just trusted each other to like get our individual parts done in time. And like I'm a new curator and I don't have a super long history of curatorial projects or anything. And so something I really like took away from this project, and that I think that I'll really like carry forward with me, is how interesting it could be to like work with an artist like with this like lens of trust and like letting go of control a little bit and just like seeing how things go. And I think that yeah,
Well, I think totally, and I think like you know, every artist is different, and like for me, like I work pretty responsively to space or context, and this is something that I do a lot of my kind of gallery practice as well. And so it wasn't like yeah, for me the whole like the kind of question of like, all right, what are we gonna do? It kind of is like I don't know, maybe it was just because like I don't know exactly why, but from the beginning I was like, this is a question of what are we gonna do? You know what I mean? What are we, like, we got to figure this out kind of thing, you know? And like just I forgot, totally forgot that like that my cat killed a bird that night. I was like, I feel like there was a lot of symbolism happening that night. Like I was at the bar and then getting like frantic texts from my partner at home because like our cat had, for the first time that we'd ever seen, like violently killed a bird on our like apartment balcony of all places. And so I like came home to make sure everything was like fine. And then I came back and everything like transpired from there. So there was, I feel like I was kind of in like an excitable state already, which like lent to like the whole kind of like myth of the night almost, you know. It became this like that became this like hilarious reason to like text you and be like, oh my God, I tried doing this research and now like my cat is naming another animal at home. And I mean, it's, you know, it's natural. But yeah, it just became like a really funny, like there really was like a myth to it almost, you know. Like I feel like we knew that like we weren't, neither of us were worried about the project happening or not at all, but like there was just something, like everything, there was a storm of circumstances that happened that night, and it all really like boiled down to like me getting up the confidence to just like talk with Francis like as a person, as a friend, whatever.
Yeah. And I feel like it kind of set the stage for you to like, and for us to just like take things as they are, like this like weird night with these like weird circumstances that started it out. And I feel like that was the first moment that like, instead of trying to necessarily like plan it and like make this space fit the project, we really considered like how to just like meet Francis like where he is, which is kind of I feel like the point of like so many of these like Chinatown spaces. Maybe this is a good time to talk about our relationships to Chinatown, because I feel like that's a very
Go ahead.
because like, so I work at the New Gallery. You kind of mentioned that like your relationship to Chinatown is like through the lens of like being like a consumer. And I think for a long time that was for me, but I work at the New Gallery now, which is an artist-run center in Calgary's Chinatown. And I've worked here for almost a year and a half now. I grew up in Calgary, and Chinatown was always like, it existed on the peripheries of my radar. But when I started here, I like realized, like, I think I developed a really complicated relationship to it. Like when I started working here, there was this coffee shop next door called Muse in the basement of the building. And on my first day here, the previous director, Su Ying Strang, she like told me that they did these really amazing like Hong Kong style buns and milk tea. And so I like went over and I told them I worked at the New Gallery, and they were super nice to me. And I grabbed one of like a milk tea, and like I realized that it's like black tea and evaporated milk, which is the same way my mom always used to make her chai. So it was immediately like so nostalgic and familiar to me, just like because of this context of like the like immigrant household that I grew up in. And this is kind of the current that is carried throughout. Like I feel like so many of these Chinatown spaces feel really welcoming and familiar because of that context. And also like the New Gallery has a presence in Chinatown. So I like can go into these spaces and be welcomed just by virtue of being part of this pre-existing like community space. And it's like the first time I've ever really existed in a neighborhood and felt like I was actually like a part of a community. And I think that comes with so many nuances. Like in one sense, it brings like a sense of like comfort and trust. I recently exhibited at Whippersnapper, which is in like Toronto's downtown. And I'm not super familiar with Toronto, and like I've been a few times, I know a few people, but it's like by no means like a city that I'm like fluent in. And this show is my first like solo exhibition as an artist. So also just in general, super nerve-wracking. And like there were a lot of firsts in terms of problem solving, but being in this like other Chinatown was such a sense of like familiarity, because even though it wasn't mine, it had so many commonalities. I felt like a lifeline. Like the New Gallery is in this historic building from 1910, which means it has like a lot of old building quirks. Like there's no soundproofing, so we can hear like the Chinese opera next door on one side of us when they rehearse on Saturdays, and like there's a mahjong club on the other side of us, and they smoke indoors, so our unit kind of just like always smells like cigarette smoke. And like sometimes when we're working quietly, we can hear like the tiles clicking. And it also has this like really scary basement, like old building, narrow rickety staircase, dimly lit, flickering light, and it's like flooded a bunch of times, so it's just kind of like weathered. Like when I started at the gallery, I remember like standing at the top of the stairs and turning on the light, and I like looked into the cavern, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna avoid going down there for like as long as humanly possible. And then when I was at Whippersnapper with Marina, like it also exists, she's one of the co-directors there, and it also exists in this like old historic building, and we're going down into the basement, and it's this like, you know, scary like rickety staircase type situation. And she's like, sorry, the basement is a little scary. And I was like, I have one of those at home too. Like I also come from a place with a scary Chinatown basement. So it was like, I feel right at home, like lots of these like parallels. And I also think that like it comes with a sense of responsibility towards the neighborhood. Like we're an artist-run center, so we have a responsibility to the artists that we show and who come into our space, but we also exist in Chinatown. And I think that like something that has always been really important for us to consider in that is like what our responsibility to that environment is. Like Calgary's Chinatown has the highest percentage population of seniors for all of its districts. So we think a lot about like who our programming is serving and like who it's accessible to. And like we translate all our texts into traditional and simplified Chinese. And we think about like how to maintain relationships with businesses in the neighborhood and like other organizations in the neighborhood, so that we all kind of like look out for each other. So I have this like very fond relationship to Chinatown, but it's also something I try to be careful about, because I think it's really easy to like romanticize the idea of a Chinatown and to like romanticize the spaces within it. Especially because like I think we've talked about this a lot. Like it's this place that like with like life and personality like centered in, I mean in Calgary at least, like within this like really stiff corporate white collar downtown. And I think that also China's being like, I mean, Chinatown's being like actively gentrified, right? So it's like being eaten from every edge. So like Muse, that coffee shop that we all loved, like closed down like 6 months after I started here. In the last few months, like a few Chinatown staples have shut down, and there are lots of spaces that just like sit empty, and like also a lot of new trendy spaces that start to creep in that like are obviously not catering to the same sort of like clientele. So I think that like romanticizing sometimes comes from this desire to like memorialize it as it's going through these shifts. But I think it's something that like needs to be considered really intentionally, like also because, sorry, you can also jump in at any time.
Oh yeah,
but
well,
I think, so go ahead.
No, you finish it out,
I was just going to say, like, because like, I mean, we like exist here in Chinatown, and Chinatown exists on stolen land. So I also think the way we talk about that is really interesting, and talking about like ownership over this like neighborhood and like a sense of identity can get murky sometimes. And yeah, I think that maybe those like ideas need to be considered together.
Yeah, totally. And like, you know, I kind of mentioned my like relationship to Chinatown at the beginning, and like, you know, I have like, you know, early memories of going into Chinese grocery stores and like filling up a bag full of peanuts or something, like from the giant peanut bins. Maybe this was unique to the one that I went to, but I was kind of thinking as we were talking about like, yeah, I think when we, like, one of the things that ended up happening that Monday was like the realization that like I needed to be kind of like approaching this. If I'm going to do something with this place, then I need to approach it, yeah, like where it's at, basically. Like, and like I don't need to kind of like make it into something other than it is for it to have value. Like I like Apollo as it is. Like it's a kind of weird, like not that, also it was, I don't know if I mentioned this, it's not that old. Like it's like a 2017 dive bar. So it's like it's like a dive by design or something, but it's not like it's still an awesome place. And like I don't need to kind of like make it into something like yeah, romantic or overly mythological. I mean, I guess I am kind of already mythologizing it, but still it's like not exactly like a cool place, but that's exactly why I like it. You know, that's why I go there. And I think like, I mean, maybe that makes me an early gentrifier, but and like speaking in like from that conversation, like, you know, we had talked also about like at least trying to be like specific to the like narratives that come with Chinatown, like as we're going into a project, you know what I mean? Like for me, I think like you know, the kind of like one of the first things you think about as an artist approaching Chinatown is gentrification, you know, and like that really, like even going through the Google Street View of like 2017 to today, you can see how much the facades are changing. Whether that means ownership is changing, I don't totally know, probably. There's a huge condo development that's like planned like at a church, like a block up. I don't know exactly how much pressure business owners are under in that neighborhood, especially compared to Spadina. I think like I kind of hinted at before, I think it's a little bit of a slower growth neighborhood. But I think for me, like being able to, instead of like parachuting in with a lot of preconceptions about what a place is supposed to be and do and say, I felt like the process of actually like talking to the owners, like going there, spending a lot of time there, like at least, and also like trying to take on the Chinatown that like is like local to me rather than the kind of like most well-known one, or you know, like more northern Chinatowns in the suburbs of Toronto that I have like absolutely no lived experience in. That to me, it just felt like the best way to get an actual like sense of what the place is and what like how to treat it without kind of this, yeah, like extractive cultural capital extraction mindset kind of thing. Like obviously I'm aware that like going into like I get value from doing this project with them. And so like the most important thing I think, like in terms of like gift giving for this project, was like, how can I provide Francis and Apollo with a gift that doesn't like feel like it's something that he like owes me for, you know what I mean? Like this is like it's meant to, like I'm trying to give him some value basically. I want to like improve his business. I want and he did say it got really busy over the Christmas holiday after the magazine came out. So I don't know if it's correlated, but anyway, yeah. I think like just thinking about like our relationships to Chinatown, and like these one-on-one relationships in general, and how they kind of like influence how we think about and talk about narratives of place, I think is really important. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that like the curiosity is like the nicest part about like this project, because I feel like the Apollo is like representative in the sense that like it's a space that like rewards your curiosity. Like it's not trying to like cater to a clientele or like trying to pull a certain person in. And I think that's a lot of Chinatown spaces. Like they're just there, and if you like are willing to be curious and willing to like explore and willing to talk, they'll reward you for that. But they don't necessarily like seek it out either.
Totally. And I think, yeah, like one of the things that I was thinking about with you while you're talking before too, was like because you can actually talk to the owner, like there's no mediation point. Like this is one of the only kind of businesses that I could go into and actually like propose putting something on their wall for art, like with their collaboration. Like, could you imagine trying to go to like an Earl's or something, or like talking to one of the servers and being like, hey, could I talk to your manager, and maybe we could like it's like such a different relationship to just like restaurant culture and like business in general, I think. Yeah. Anyway, just made me think about that. But
yeah. No, I agree. Okay, so there's a Q&A question that I wanted to answer. Do you know your Chinese astrology sign?
Sorry, say it again.
Your Chinese astrology sign?
Oh yeah, I'm a rooster.
Me too.
Oh, I didn't know that. 93
93.
till infinity. Yep. I don't know what the rooster monkey relationship is. I also don't know Francis's. I think this will be an important question next time I go.
Because you mentioned that Francis chose the monkey for his daughter, right? I feel like I remember you telling me that.
Yeah. Good luck and for his daughter. Yeah. So cute. When I went and brought like 10 copies of CMag to him when they came out, and like he immediately like disappeared into the back on his phone. It was like with the magazines. I was, oh my God. One thing. Oh yeah, I was thinking also when you mentioned details for spaces. Before this Monday night, and as I was kind of getting to know Francis, but I hadn't really met him yet. I asked him. I went to go use the bathroom, I think, in the back, and there's somebody in there. So I came out, and he was like, oh, like there's a newly renovated bathroom past that one. Like, let me show you. And like walked back and like showed me to his like nicer bathroom in the back. That I came out, and like one of the locals or like regulars was like, he's showing you the second bathroom. Like, that means he likes you. It's like he has this like secret second bathroom that he only like shows to like worthy customers.
So funny. So you were in even before you did it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had been there a few times, so I was trying to slowly work my way in. Yeah. Also, Francis is like such a fascinating figure in himself. Like has this like very cool haircut.
Yeah, the picture of him in the doorway of the Apollo is so good. Like he's so stylish, he's so happy.
Yeah, and I think like I have yet to ask him, because I think he wears this like band shirt that I don't know. Anyway, I think he used to play in bands. Also, I was talking with him about his like favorite music while I was plugging the jukebox one day. And I was like, Francis, what do you like to listen to? And he was like, because he grew up in Hong Kong in the 90s. He's like really into like, was it like kind of like Euro dance, like Brit pop Euro dance, kind of like early pop techno kind of stuff. Anyway, fun detail.
That is a fun detail.
Yeah. We're getting prompted for a Q&A for 10 minutes to 7. Why don't we just do it now?
Then?
If do you... Oh, I got one here. Okay, Simon, what songs did you put in the jukebox? Oh, that night, one was, I actually have a bunch of them in my Spotify. One was, I think it's Tektronic Pump the Jam. I think that was like of that era. I can't remember the other ones. I would have to like go back in my Spotify library, but that's one of them. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm just jumping in here. So we have another question from Morgan M, who says, such a beautiful project. Simon, you mentioned feeling nervous about making initial contact with Francis. Can you talk more about what confronting that feeling felt like? And how do you think the gift giving part of this work might influence your future work? Which is a great question.
Yeah. Where did it come from? I think it was like Francis is a bit enigmatic. Like he's like once you start talking to him, he's totally open, but he's not necessarily like totally available to you. Because he's also just like running a business, like he's working, so like that makes sense. Like I'm not really like his friend right away. So I think you know, it was really maybe partly like body language and like just like being alone in this space and not having a kind of like, because I was also like asking quite a lot of him early on, you know, like it was sort of like, hi, my name is Simon, I've been here a few times, do you want to do this big magazine project with me? Like it's kind of like a big ask. So I was pretty like, I feel like there's this period in art projects sometimes where like you have to really like, I'll have like a kind of eccentric idea, but you really have to commit to it, you know, or it just won't happen. Like you have you have to just do it, you know. But sometimes the doing it is actually like it's kind of risky, even if it's just like socially risky, you know. Sometimes it means like taking, maybe it's like a financial commitment to do something or whatever. And I feel like I was at that precipice where it was like I was like seeing the potential of like this project not happening because like I just can't broach that conversation. I'm too nervous. I don't know who this Francis guy is. He's just going to shut me down, kind of thing. So I was really lucky, I felt, that to like have like a few people that knew him pretty well like guide me into that conversation. To be honest, I think he would have, like in retrospect, I think he would have been down either way, but it was just a lot of social anxiety and kind of like, you know, all of that stuff. And how would it play into future practice? I don't, that part I don't know. I think like relationship building will always be, and like talking with people will always be a big part of my process. I think beyond gift giving, it's more like I try to ask myself like what kind of like am I like being a decent person in this project? Because I do rely on a lot of conversation with whether it's other artists or curators and stuff, and I'm conscious of people's time, and also like you know, that sometimes whether I'm like learning skills from people or getting opportunities from people or whatever, like I want to make sure that they're like on board, you know, and that they're feeling like I'm not just kind of like using this for a CV line kind of thing. And I think like it's more that methodology that has stayed with me after this. Like, yeah. I hope that kind of answers the question.
Yeah, there's a couple moments as you both were talking that stood out to me, like you acknowledging the nerves of even you, Senna and Simon first meeting, and like before you had built familiarity, but then that story about like you had forgotten you told Senna that your cat killed a bird. It reminds me of just in relations of how you become, there's a saying from somewhere I forget, but like you become each other's memory. And you're like, oh yeah, that happened. And that was part of the myth of the night. Um, and I think the way you approach this project also, like that moment of the wake up call of who are we doing this for, says something in a very fundamental level about even the ethics of working as an artist. And if you say you're about relationship building, how you're enacting that, and I kind of see that through all these levels of how you realize this project and the way you're talking about it now.
Yeah, and I think that like I feel like sometimes our practice is framed as this like selfless thing, but it's kind of nice to just be upfront about the fact that like Simon, like you mentioned that like you gain like social capital from doing this project too, and like I feel like a lot of like we also benefited from the relationship and like the friendships that like come out of it as well. Like I think that the personal like development that like moved through this project was really like relevant to it, and to pretend that it exists as this thing sort of like outside of us is just like not true. Like I remember like when I came to Toronto for my show and like we went for a drink, and it was like the first time we met in person, and we met at like Collision Gallery where your work was up. And so like I got to like see this like installation, this like very like immersive sound installation you had done, and also like hear the context. And also because I like knew you at that point, it was just this like really interesting way of I guess like continuing to get to know you and like continuing to build on the things that we had built on, like started building here.
Yeah, totally. And I think it harkens back to like what you were saying at the very beginning, like trying to form like communities that aren't that aren't necessarily defined by competition. At the same time, it can be like it takes checking in, I think, and because like it's easy to kind of like assume a kind of like moral high ground, I think, when you like say phrases like community a lot, and I think I felt a little worried that I was gonna like fall into that trap or something, whereas yeah, like it actually takes like an honest like account of like what like who are these people that I'm working with, what do, let's talk about together like what we actually want out of this. And yeah, I don't know, and kind of more broadly, like the self is defined in relation to another, and that doesn't have to necessarily be like a kind of antagonistic relation. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just from my view, I remember this point where I remember just online you shared a photo of Francis holding the copy of the magazine and just felt very real to me, and it made me smile. And I think now I'm thinking like, oh, we could have all gotten drinks at the Apollo or something, and maybe that didn't have to be under the C magazine banner, but what does that
We'll have
mean?
to go
Like,
sometime.
we'll have to go sometime.
Yeah.
Also think about like what makes an art event. It doesn't always have to be a certain type of vibe or environment, but also not to take advantage or like extract from another environment for your own purposes. But yeah, a few weeks back I was walking down East Chinatown and I saw the Apollo. And that's my first time really recognizing it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's from your project.
Totally. And like on the like realization that this is real, I think like it didn't quite hit me until I like came with my camera, and I like hung the drawing, and I was like, oh my God, like I'm like asking this guy to like pose for me in front of this camera. Like this is just, it's just so intimate. And but he like, and I'm so grateful that he was like so enthusiastic and like was really into it. And yeah, I don't know, it just really hit me that this is like this guy's kind of become if not a close friend, like a close community member, local friend. Yeah, did we have any final questions or anything from anyone?
I mean, we have a fun question from the Q&A that says, Simon, what songs did you put on the jukebox? Did you already answer this?
Oh yeah, I did talk about the Pump Up the Jam song.
Right, a classic.
The internet jukeboxes are fun because you have to like find like songs that would be on it, because like you have to go outside of your kind of like more alternative music taste if that's your vibe. So like it's a game of trying to be like, okay, what are the like super top 50 songs that I actually like that might be on here. Any of those basically.
That reminds me of sometimes depending on places karaoke selections, but like the way that you choose songs for that, you're like, what would be on here? There's something else. Yes, Morgan's just saying, thank you, Simon and Sanaa. This is such a wonderful talk. Do either of you have any last parting words?
This is just nice to talk about it. I enjoyed this.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Everyone check out Apollo on Broadview.
we should all meet there. This was really lovely. Thank you again both for being, and everyone in the audience for being here with us tonight. Just to close off from C, anyone is welcome to submit for future or online reviews and features. We're currently accepting print and review pitches, which you can read about more on our submissions page. We have a current call out. Mondeck has shared that in the chat for our C155 issue on codes. So you can think about coding in new media art or social ethical codes, relational codes, as we've talked about tonight, just to welcome you to pitch for that. Yeah, thank you, Simon and Sanaa again, and I hope everyone has a lovely night.
Thanks so much for hosting.